There comes a point when your voice grows tired of explaining, your heart grows weary of hoping, and your soul finally decides to let go. That's when distance enters, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of quiet strength. You stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop fighting to be seen in places where your presence was once overlooked. And that silence, that distance, begins to speak louder than every word you ever said. When you pull back, you don't announce it. You just stop showing up the way you used to. You stop replying instantly, stop filling the empty spaces of their inconsistency with your effort, and you start choosing peace over attention. That's when the shift happens. They start to feel the absence. Your distance becomes a mirror. They begin to notice the gap between your presence and your absence. Where your messages once filled their phone, now there's nothing but stillness. Where your laughter once echoed, now there's silence. And in that silence, they begin to think people rarely appreciate warmth until they stand in the cold. They rarely value consistency until it disappears. They start to wonder what happened. Did you move on? Did you stop caring? Did you find someone new? But what they're truly asking is, why doesn't this person need me anymore? That question hits harder than any argument ever could. Because your distance doesn't just remove you from their reach, it removes their control over your emotions. Distance gives you your power back. For so long, they knew that no matter what, you'd stay. They could hurt you, take you for granted, disappear for a while, and you'd still be there, waiting with open arms. But when you finally walk away without announcing your departure, they begin to feel the imbalance. The one who used to pour endlessly has stopped pouring. The one who always checked in has gone silent. The one who used to chase no longer cares to run. And suddenly, they start to feel the discomfort you once carried. They experience the confusion you lived with, the doubt you swallowed, the pain you hid with patience. That's what distance does. It shifts the emotional weight back to where it belongs. You see, when you give someone distance, you aren't punishing them. You're healing yourself. You're teaching them through silence what your words couldn't teach through love. You're no longer trying to convince someone to see your worth. You're showing it by walking away from where it isn't recognized. And people feel that. They sense when your energy changes. They might not admit it, but they notice. The late night texts that used to come effortlessly now feel forced. The comfort they once felt in knowing you'd always respond starts to fade. They scroll through old messages, trying to find pieces of you in the past because they no longer have access to you in the present. That's when regret starts to grow, slowly, quietly, but deeply. The beauty of distance is that it creates clarity, not just for them, but for you too. You begin to see that your worth was never dependent on their recognition. You start to understand that peace feels better than attention. You realize that the person you were chasing was never really ahead of you. They were just standing still, letting you run in circles. But now the roles have reversed. Your absence becomes the noise in their silence. Your distance becomes the lesson they never wanted to learn but needed to. It makes them remember the softness they dismissed, the loyalty they misused, and the calm they took for granted. They start to recall the little things. How you always understood their silence. How you knew what to say when they didn't know what they felt. How your presence brought ease into chaos. Now that you're gone, that comfort is gone too. They might try to replace it, but no one quite carries your energy. No one listens like you. No one loves like you. And no one stays the way you did. They realize too late that your consistency wasn't ordinary. It was rare. And by the time that realization hits, your silence has already done what your words couldn't. People often come back not because you reminded them, but because distance forced them to remember. They come back because your absence made them feel something they didn't expect. Emptiness. The same emptiness you once felt when they dismissed your effort. But now it's reversed. Now they're the ones wondering what went wrong, what changed, why the connection that once felt eternal now feels unreachable. And the truth is, nothing happened. You simply stopped pouring into a cup that was never meant to hold your love. The more distance you give, the more they realize how much of their emotional stability was tied to your presence. They miss the comfort of being understood, the assurance of being forgiven, the warmth of being loved unconditionally. They might not say it out loud, but it shows in their actions, the late night messages, the sudden check-ins, the attempts to reconnect under casual excuses. That's not coincidence. That's distance doing its quiet work. You didn't have to prove your worth by staying, you proved it by leaving. Because when someone truly loses access to your energy, they begin to see how much of it they depended on. They come back not because they suddenly became better people, but because they finally see what they lost when you stopped showing up. Your distance became your voice, and your silence became your strength. And in the space you created, they finally learned what your presence really meant. When you pull back, something changes in the atmosphere between you and them, an invisible tension that wasn't there before. For a long time, they were comfortable. They knew that no matter what, you'd always be there, waiting, forgiving, understanding, and constantly showing up even when they didn't. You became a safe space they took for granted. A constant presence they thought they'd never lose. But when you stopped chasing, when you stopped explaining and proving your worth, everything shifted. Suddenly, the energy that once flowed freely from you went quiet, and in that silence, they began to notice. They began to feel the absence of what once felt guaranteed. It's strange how distance makes people see clearly. When you were always available, they didn't have to think. They didn't have to wonder how you felt or if you'd still be there tomorrow. They just knew. But the moment you pulled away, it disturbed their sense of control. It made them question why. Why aren't you calling anymore? Why aren't you replying instantly? Why does it feel like you don't care? And that curiosity starts to grow. They begin to replay old conversations, moments, and memories trying to find clues. The same person who once ignored your effort now becomes obsessed with the mystery of your silence. That's the quiet power of distance. It changes the story without you saying a word. You stop proving your worth, and they start realizing it on their own. They begin to see how much peace you brought to their chaos. They remember how you made difficult days feel bearable, how your words could calm their storms, and how your patience held things together when they didn't even deserve it. Now that you've stepped back, they're forced to face the truth. No one else makes them feel that kind of peace. They meet new people, they have conversations, but it never feels the same. Every interaction reminds them of the ease you carried, the emotional depth you brought, and the safety they once felt around you. When you distance yourself, you shift the balance of energy. You reclaim the emotional power that was once scattered trying to please, explain, and fix. It's no longer about them, it becomes about you. And that shift doesn't go unnoticed. They feel it. They feel when you stop overthinking about them, when your responses lose urgency, when your attention moves inward. They start to sense that they are no longer the center of your focus. What once fed their ego now feels like a void, and that void starts to bother them. It makes them wonder if they were ever as important to you as they believed. That uncertainty is what brings them back. People crave validation more than they crave love. When you stop validating someone's importance in your life, they start chasing that validation back. They want to feel desired again, missed again, needed again. So they return, sometimes with apologies, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with charm. But behind it all is the realization that the energy you gave them was rare. They start comparing you to others. They notice that the things they took for granted, your honesty, your emotional maturity, your consistency, are not as common as they thought. And every comparison reminds them how much they lost when you stepped away. Distance doesn't just make them miss you. It exposes them to themselves. It shows them the truth about how much they relied on you emotionally, how much of their peace came from your stability. When you pull back, you force them to sit with their own emptiness. They begin to realize that the connection wasn't just about affection. It was about emotional groundings. You were their calm in a world that constantly demanded noise. And when that calm disappears, they start to crave it like air. They come back not out of habit, but out of need. They come back because your absence stripped away their comfort and made them face their own discontent. But while they're busy rediscovering their feelings, something else is happening. You're rediscovering yourself. You start to see that love shouldn't feel like a one-sided effort. You begin to understand that real connection doesn't require constant chasing or overgiving. The more you focus on yourself, the more your energy becomes magnetic. You become grounded, glowing, unattached, and that energy draws people back in stronger than any words ever could. They can sense it. They feel it even without seeing you. Your calm confidence becomes the very thing they can't ignore. And the irony is, when they finally come back, you're no longer the same person they left. The version of you that begged for attention has evolved into someone who values peace over validation. They realize too late that the distance they thought would break you actually rebuilt you. You stopped needing them to see your worth because you finally saw it yourself. And that right there is what makes them come running. Because people are always drawn to what they can't control, what they can't predict, and what feels effortlessly powerful. Your silence becomes the loudest sound in their life. They feel it in the moments they scroll through old photos, reread old messages, and try to convince themselves they made the right choice. But deep down, they know something's missing. The emotional security you gave them without conditions. And now they want it back. They'll reach out with small gestures, maybe a message saying, "Hey, just checking on you," or a comment on something you post. But what they're really saying is, "Arts, I miss the feeling you gave me." A distance exposes the truth in ways closeness never could. It reveals what was real, what was taken for granted, and what still lingers even after silence. And for the one who took you lightly, it becomes a wake-up call, a realization that your presence wasn't something ordinary. It was a gift they didn't know how to cherish until it was gone. That's why they come back. Not because you asked them to, not because you reminded them, but because your distance forced them to remember the difference between attention and connection. And they finally realized which one you gave them. Distance has a strange way of awakening what comfort once silenced. When you're always around someone, your presence becomes part of their routine, so ordinary, so accessible, that they stop noticing its value. But when you step back, when you finally decide to let silence do the talking, something shifts. Suddenly, the little things they overlooked start echoing in their mind. The laughter they brushed off now plays on repeat. The way you understood their mood without words, the warmth in your voice, the way your presence calmed their chaos. It all begins to resurface. Distance doesn't erase memories, it magnifies them. It turns ordinary moments into reminders of what once felt like home. At first, they might not even realize what's happening. They'll go about their days, pretending everything is normal. They'll distract themselves, convince themselves that your absence doesn't matter. But slowly, when the noise of distraction fades, your silence begins to speak. It creeps into their thoughts when they least expect it. During a quiet night, an old song, or a familiar scent. That's how distance works. It doesn't rush. It waits patiently until there's still enough to feel the emptiness left behind. They begin to miss the energy you brought into their life. Not just your presence, but the emotional safety you created. You were their calm space in a world full of chaos. You listened without judgment, cared without demand, and stayed when others ran. That kind of energy doesn't fade easily. It lingers in the air, in memories, in the way they now measure everyone else against you. They meet new people, but something always feels off. Conversations feel shallow, connections feel temporary. Because deep down, they're looking for you, the feeling you gave them that no one else can replicate. That's the mystery of distance. It reveals value through absence. When you were available, they didn't have to think. They didn't have to choose gratitude because they believed your presence was endless. But when you stopped showing up, They were forced to face a new reality. They start to remember how you used to check on them, how your words had a way of softening their hard days, how your laughter made things lighter. Those memories begin to haunt them in the most subtle ways. They realize that the comfort they once dismissed was rare, that the peace they felt around you wasn't normal, it was special. Distance creates emotional reflection. It strips away the noise and forces people to feel. And sometimes that's what they need to finally understand what they had. When you're gone, life doesn't feel the same. The people they turn to now can't offer the same understanding. The connections they try to form feel shallow. Every attempt to move on feels like forcing a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. And little by little, they realize it wasn't just your words or your kindness they miss. It was the way you made them feel seen. You gave them a sense of belonging that no one else could replace. There's something powerful about being missed in silence. It means you made an impression without trying. You didn't need to chase or convince. Your energy did the work. Distance gives your presence a kind of gravity. It pulls them back, not out of guilt, but out of realization. They start to feel the emotional withdrawal, like a light that suddenly went out. They may not even know how to approach you at first. They might hesitate, replaying moments in their mind, wondering if it's too late. That hesitation is proof that they feel your absence more than they expected. You didn't have to remind them of your worth. Distance did that for you. It became the mirror they couldn't ignore. They started seeing their actions through your silence. They began to understand that love isn't about possession, it's about presence. And when that presence disappeared, they finally recognized how much space you held in their life. They might try to fill it with new experiences, people, or distractions, but nothing fits quite the same, because once someone experiences a genuine soul connection, everything else feels a little too loud, a little too temporary. So that's why they come back, not because they suddenly became different, but because they finally felt the emptiness your absence left behind. They come back because distance broke the illusion of comfort and showed them what they had truly lost. They come back because the moments they dismissed now feel precious. They come back because their mind won't stop replaying how effortlessly you made them feel safe, valued, and loved. But by the time they come back, you're no longer the same. Distance doesn't just teach them, it teaches you too. You learn that you don't have to beg to be seen. You learn that sometimes walking away is more powerful than staying. You realize that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. You begin to glow differently, not out of arrogance, but out of peace. You no longer crave closure or validation because your distance gave you both. And that new version of you, calm, grounded, self-assured, is what draws them back even more. They sense the shift. They feel the quiet confidence in your energy. You've become the person who no longer needs to prove love, and that makes them crave it even more. The same silence that once hurt you becomes the silence that heals you, and ironically, the silence that pulls them back. In the end, people don't come back because you reminded them of who you are. They come back because distance reminded them of who they were when they had you. They remember the peace they felt, the comfort they didn't appreciate, and the love they mishandled. They realize that while the world is full of noise, genuine connections are rare, and yours was one they can't forget. Distance didn't end the connection, it transformed it. It made them see clearly what they couldn't while you were right there. That your absence is not emptiness, it's power. You see, there comes a moment when you finally understand. You were never losing them, they were losing you. You were never too much, they simply didn't know how to handle someone who gave so much love without conditions. And when you stopped chasing, when you finally gave them distance, the universe began to show you something powerful. That silence speaks louder than effort. That absence teaches louder than presence. And that letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because sometimes walking away is not about giving up, it's about giving yourself back to yourself. Let's be honest, you spent nights wondering if you did something wrong, if maybe you were too emotional, too loyal, too giving. But now you see it clearly. Your heart was never the problem. The problem was giving it to people who didn't value it. You were watering dead plants, hoping they would bloom. But now, you've realized that love isn't supposed to drain you, it's supposed to grow you. And distance became your garden of strength. It taught you that peace tastes sweeter than being half loved. It taught you that not every connection deserves your constant effort. It taught you that sometimes silence is the most powerful boundary you'll ever set. And here's the truth. When you gave them space, you gave them a chance to see what life feels like without your energy. You gave them the gift of realization. You made them face themselves, their choices, their emptiness. You made them see what unconditional love looks like only after it was gone. That's power, quiet, unseen, yet unforgettable. They'll never admit it out loud, but your distance taught them more than your words ever could. It reminded them that good people are not replaceable, that genuine souls are rare, and that once they're gone, nothing feels the same. But this isn't just about them coming back. It's about you coming back too. Coming back to your strength, your peace, your self-worth. The same distance that made them miss you made you meet yourself again. You found the parts of you that got lost in trying to please others. You remembered what it feels like to stand tall in your own silence. You realized that you don't need to be chosen to feel worthy, because you were already enough before anyone failed to see it. That's your awakening, that's your glow up. So when they return, and trust me, they will, don't look at them through the same eyes. You've outgrown the version of yourself that begged to be seen. Now you stand in the power of being enough without needing to be chased. You don't need closure when you are your own peace. You don't need validation when you already know your value. You don't need to prove anything because your absence already did. Let your silence be the final chapter in the story they never appreciated. Because the truth is, you don't owe them another version of yourself to understand your worth. If they come back, let it be because they finally see what they lost, not because you reminded them. And if they don't, let it be because you finally understood that you never needed them to begin with. Either way, you win. Because you've learned that love is not about who stays longest, it's about who grows strongest. You've learned that distance is not rejection, it's redirection, pushing you back toward the person you were meant to become. You've learned that walking away isn't about ending a story, it's about beginning a new one where you are the main character, not the supporting role in someone else's chaos. Say it with confidence. I'm not angry, I'm not bitter, I'm just done forcing what doesn't flow. That's not arrogance, that's healing. That's what peace looks like. That's what growth feels like, because one day they'll realize that your distance wasn't a punishment. It was a mirror. It showed them who they were when they thought you'd never leave. And by then, you'll be too far gone, too healed, too focused on your own light to look back. That's the beauty of emotional evolution. You stop needing to prove your love, and you start protecting your energy. So to the one listening right now, don't regret giving distance. Don't question the space you created. That silence you built, it's sacred. It's the space where your strength is reborn, where your spirit breathes, where your peace returns. They may come back, they may not, but that's not your concern anymore. What matters is that you did not lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who couldn't see your worth. You broke the pattern, you set yourself free, and in that freedom, you found a kind of happiness that no validation could ever give. Listen, you are not hard to love, you just love deeply. You are not replaceable, you just give genuinely. And you are not forgotten, you just became unforgettable. Because when people experience the kind of love that flows from your soul, they can never truly erase it. They might try to move on, but your energy lingers, not as a shadow, but as a standard. You became their lesson, their reflection, their reminder of what real connection feels like. That's your power, not revenge, not resentment, but realization. So hold your head high. Keep walking forward, because the ones who were meant to stay will match your energy, not drain it. The ones who deserve your love won't need distance to realize your value. They'll recognize it while they have you. But until then, keep choosing yourself, keep protecting your peace, keep being that rare kind of soul who gives love freely, but never at the cost of self-respect. And when they finally come back, because you'll smile, not with bitterness, but with wisdom, because now you know distance doesn't destroy real connections. It only destroys the ones built on convenience. And you, my friend, were never meant to be convenient. You were meant to be cherished.